We are here, this is NEAF 2023, and it's been too long. It's been 3 long years since we had a NEAF, and this is Simon's first time. Simon is here with us for representing ZWO, basically.
That's right, yeah. So, yep, my first time in NEAF, never been here before. Absolutely loving it.
I know, I want to kind of we're going to brag a little bit about ZWO. So ZWO, they only came out like 12 years ago, and they have, in essence, kind of, not only they revolutionized the market of astrophotography, but they've kind of like taken it over, so to speak. I mean, you just walk this floor, you will see other companies, and if you were here 3 or 4 years ago, you would have noticed their telescopes were a different color, and now they've kind of switched their color schemes to match your products and so forth. And of course, Simon, now tell me about how you came to work for ZWO.
So I've been in astrophotography quite a few years. I started off basically buying my own ZWO cameras and helping out a lot of people with their problems on social media, Facebook for example. Somehow, somewhere along the line, I ended up getting involved with the ZWO team internally, and yeah, they invited me along this year, first time here, and long trip, 17 hours from New Zealand, but yeah, now I'm a technical support engineer in my part-time for ZWO.
I know, this is a bit of a question for maybe the technical team, but we'll see what you know about it. So I was wondering, what are some of the biggest technological hurdles that ZWO do you think has had to overcome the past 12 years that they've been around?
I mean, over the years, obviously there's been a huge development in their cameras, but I know I asked this question internally with the team. Actually, one of the biggest ones has been the AM series mounts, because you know, obviously ZWO has 12 years, a lot of experience with cameras, but getting into the mount market was a completely new piece of work for them. We're using harmonic drive in our mounts. Now that's normally the realm of robotics, and there's no accuracy in those. Whereas a telescope mount, driving that around the sky, getting it to guide properly is hard. So this is a completely new realm for them, but one that they've taken up the challenge with, and I think with the AM5 and now the AM3, they've done a fantastic job on.
We're going to talk about new products, and that is one of them. I know, I remember when I was reading one of my first astrophotography books, the author, he said that if a single grain of sand, which is about 4 thousandths diameter, the size of a human hair's diameter, by the way, that's enough to mesh in the gears of a scope and actually move it 70 arc seconds, which is the diameter of Jupiter. So, obviously precision, I can see that's a big deal. As a machinist myself, yeah, the mount is a pretty big achievement for them.
If you have a look at the mounts, the way that they're constructed, they're very precision. They're aircraft aluminum, they're CNC machined, they're burnt in at the factory. They run for 24 hours in the factory before dispatch, and each one comes with its own individual test report. So they're really, really accurately made.
Yeah, as a machinist, I can actually speak for that. That's basically what we call honing in the gears.
Yeah, they work really, really well, and when you have a look at them, you can see how nicely constructed they are. So ZWO have used their experience in building cameras in the factories to actually construct these beautiful mounts.
For you, what do you think makes astrophotography fun?
One of the things that I love about it is that you can use technology, but you can also be out under the stars. So sometimes I will go outside. I have all this, I have a home observatory. I have 2 piers. I could operate from inside and just go to bed, but quite often I just take the AM5 outside and go and sit in the chair with a tablet. But the beauty of that is I take my AM5 down to our observatory at the Canterbury Astronomical Society in New Zealand, and I set it up and give the kids that tablet. And they slew around the sky taking pictures of objects around the night sky with ASI Air, and they just adore it. And just seeing the fun in that for those kids is just amazing. It makes, I love this. I really do.
I'm curious, what kind of Bortle sky are you under?
Do I have to tell you? I don't want to make people jealous.
No, go ahead. I'm under a Bortle 4. I just moved to a Bortle 4, and I have a Bortle 3 10 minutes from my house.
So home is Bortle 2-3. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
That's all right. I've been to Colorado, which was a Bortle 1.
Yeah.
A beautiful sky, and I was at 10,000 feet. I gotta say, I could see globular clusters with my naked eye. It was pretty amazing. So.
Yeah, also coming from the southern hemisphere, of course, we've got some fantastic objects down there. We can see the large Magellanic Cloud, the small Magellanic Cloud by naked eye. So, yeah, it's nice.
Yes, you definitely do. Let's talk about the new scope lineup. I know I talked about other companies have been changing their color scheme to match yours. You guys just came out with a new set, and this was I knew that it was only a matter of time before ZWO started making their own scopes. But what surprised me is that they came up with a very complete set of scopes. So let's talk about that.
We don't do things in half. So yeah, we've got the. Of course, they're red. They are ZWO branded, and you can also see our new logos on there as well.
They're white. I like white scopes.
White and red.
Black, I trip over them at night.
Yeah. So we have 4 scopes in the range. So there is a little 65, which is actually a quintupler. Beautiful little thing. Great for wide field, fast refractor, and lightweight imaging. Combining that with an AM3 in the field is just a dream. Then we've got a little bit more ambitious. We've got an 80 millimeter, which is actually a quad. And then if you want to go much larger, we've got a 107. And then we've got the daddy of them all. There's a 130 over there, which is a bit of a beast, but still okay on an AM5. And all of those are flat field Petzval designs, so they don't actually need a field flattener, so they're flat out of the box. And we do have also matching reducers for them as well, which is obviously something that a lot of people want, and sometimes finding a reducer for them is kind of hard. So we made it easy. So
I did want to ask you a couple of things. I know because for Petzval design, so you have your normal triplet setup, and then shortly thereafter you'll have basically a field flattener, but because it's much closer to the main objective, triplet I should say, that's why it doesn't need any back focus considerations. You still basically focus by moving the sensor forwards and backwards, and it really does simplify things. Whereas the older way of doing it, of keeping the flattening doublet, which is usually 2 pieces of glass, much closer to the sensor, well then you've got back focus issues, and I know that is probably the number 1 question that I see on the forums. What's my back focus? What does it mean? But then I know the focal reducers. Now right now, if somebody orders a scope, they're getting one for free, right?
That's right. So until the end of April, if you order one of these new scopes, you will receive a free reducer with it. So
I love my focal reducers. Everything in the space is really big. I tell this to people and they don't seem to get it. It's like, yeah, it's really big. You don't need long focal lengths. Wide is more desirable, and therefore that's why focal reducers are a big deal. So I'm glad to see that packaged in there. ZWO, of course, we already talked a little bit about the mounts and stuff that you came out with, but now we've got an AM3, and I was looking at the specs, and it looks like it's about half the weight, right?
So not quite. It's 4 kilos in weight. What's that? 8 pounds in US money. So it's a little lighter. The body is somewhat smaller as well, but it retains all of the features of the original AM5 with a few sort of minor tweaks. It doesn't have the 12-volt out on the side due to the body size, but it has Bluetooth in it now. So if you wanted to run the AM app, which is the mount app, you can, if you want to do it for visual, you can directly click the mount via Bluetooth, but it retains all of the original features. The good thing is it retains the same base plate size. So you can still use the carbon fiber TC40 tripod, you can still use the PE200 peer extensions, so if you have those or you want to buy them, they're the same accessories. So same style, same kind of body, same sort of features on it. 8 kilos capacity, that's about 16 pounds in US without a counterweight, and up to 24 pounds with a counterweight, and it still has the counterweight shaft connector on the bottom as well.
That's actually a pretty good trade-off, and also I like the fact that you were still able to use the same mount base. Yeah. A good foundation is important. So now you also came out with Seastar S50 this year, and this is something that I didn't think I would see a price tag this low on a smart scope like this, but you guys did it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Seastar. Seastar is a completely new concept for ZWO. So just to let the viewers know what Seastar is, if you haven't had a look at it already, it is basically an electronically assisted telescope. So it is a small, compact unit that has a 250 millimeter telescope, f4. It has an IMX 462 sensor in it, color sensor. One of the things that it does that no other EV scope does, it does autofocus. So it has an autofocus capability in there. There is multi-modes in there. Has 2 filters. Has a UV-IR filter built in, but also has a dark filter as well, which you'll use for calibration frames.
I was going to ask about what kind of filters are in it. Narrowband channel, of course I'm going to ask that.
And we already had a lot of discussion internally as to whether we could change out those filters for a dual band filter. So they're 1.25" filters. So we're having some discussions around that right now internally as well. But the unit has a battery in it, about 6 hours of battery. It's a 3/8 connector on the bottom as well. It does come with a very tiny little carbon fiber tripod as well. Nice. So you can sit this on a table, picnic table. You could sit it on the floor, on top of your car even.
Yeah, I was going to say, the top of your car.
Yeah, if you can reach. And, it has a slightly different app than ASI Air, but anybody that uses ASI Air will be right at home because it's got the Sky Atlas in there, live stacking, still some image processing in there, and some social media tools as well. Okay. So one of the big things that we're talking about at the moment, of course, is citizen science. Yes. So that's something that we're really interested about. So we're developing this. Comes out in July, so we've still got a lot of time. There's still a lot of work going on internally about this as well.
I know. I've always been a big advocate for making astrophotography more accessible to everybody, because for a lot of people it's very daunting. There's so many different components and so much science that you have to basically learn in order to do astrophotography. And I've often told the classes that I teach is like, listen, if you struggle making stick figures, but you master technical things, this is the hobby for you, because it's entirely technical and very little art involved. It's the most technically difficult form of photography that there is, period. Now before we talk about the new camera, I know with making the market, more accessible to everybody, astrophotography is a growing section of photography. No other branch of photography is growing right now. They're all shrinking, in fact. Wildlife photography, macro photography, pictures of events, pictures of people, all these things are shrinking. They're being cannibalized by the cell phone. But astrophotography is growing, okay? Just looking here, it's been 3 years since we had a NEAF, and almost everything here is about astrophotography now. When I was here 3 years ago, there was hardly any astrophotography stuff. But you guys just came out with a new version of the 2600 MC Pro-Cooled camera, which has some unique features about the well depth. And I was wondering if you had some more details about that.
Yeah, so one of the challenges of putting an astrophotography rig together is, cables, guide scopes, and so we had to think about this internally. So we came out with the 2600 ZWO, which is basically the same, 2600 that we all know and love. It's still got the IMX 571 sensor in it. But we snuck in a little extra on the side of the main sort of PCB, which is an ASI 220 guider. So this is the little guide scope that we recently introduced. So this is on the same PCB, and so you now have basically an M54 front with the IMX 571 APS-C sensor in the middle. And then slightly off to the side, you have the guide chip, which basically creates an on-axis guide capability. So instead of having the complexity of an off-axis guider with the guide camera on the side, we took that away. Now you just screw on the camera like you would your normal 2600, but the guide is in there as well. And they do appear as 2 separate devices. So the 220 and the 2600 appear, if you have ASI Air, for example, or ASCOM, you'll be able to access them as 2 separate devices. But they are actually combined on the USB hub inside the camera. So no cables, one cable still into the camera, and just no fuss. That's the great thing about it.
I know dual cameras, that been in existence before, but I've never seen one be successful. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that, of course, was software and the support behind it. You know, people just couldn't figure out how it worked, and so the software end of it was always the failure in the past. And I think ZWO, with your ASI software, it'll probably be a success this time, for sure. And also, like, there's that new deeper well depth. How did that come about? Because I know I was talking to some of the team, the engineers directly from China, and this didn't happen this time, but I can't wait for this to happen. Astrophotography, when we build cameras, we have to kind of pick up the breadcrumbs that are left over by other manufacturers as they design chips, because no astrophotography company right now has enough money to say, hey, we want Sony to build this sensor, okay? Nobody has that kind of money yet, but it is coming. I know it. And this time around, it was very close. I looked at this, I was like, did they really do it? And they didn't this time.
I'm sure it will.
But how did that, do you know any of the details about how you got the well depth deeper with this particular camera?
So actually, the IMX 571 has this capability and as part of the chip already.
Okay.
But mostly as astrophotographers, if you use these kind of cameras, you're going to be using, on this particular camera, gain 100, which is where that high conversion mode kicks in, lowest read noise. Some people will use gain 0 if they're shooting something really bright. The 571 already has this well depth in. There is one sort of gotcha around accessing this is you actually need to go into gain minus 25. So a lower gain, but a bigger well depth, and this is how they've accessed this. Now normally you can't access that on the ASCOM drivers, but we've now opened that up. So if you really want to experiment with, really deeper well depth, then you'll be able to access that in sort of that sort of expert mode in ASCOM, where you can set your own gain levels, go to gain 25, minus 25, and then you can access it.
Okay. All right, so ZWO has come out with a new version of the ASI Air Plus, and this time with more memory and a little bit more speed, right?
Indeed, yeah. So there's actually a little bit more to it as well. So the original ASI Air Plus was based on a Raspberry Pi compute platform, the CM4 compute board. We've moved away from that completely. We now have our own custom compute platform, and with that comes a new Rockchip quad-core processor. That processor is slightly faster and slightly better than the CM4 board, which means that we have about a 26% faster capability within the CPU. That means that we've got about a 30% faster frame rate capability. So if you do EAA or planetary, that will really help. And also the ability to use its custom board means that we don't have this CM4 board sitting on the top. Occasionally that's caused us problems in the past, so it should be a little bit more reliable as well. Other than that, the ASI Air Plus is the same Plus as you know and love. All the ports are the same, the 2 USB 3, 2 USB 2s, same DC ports, availability, same features. You don't need to upgrade the ASI Air app to get access to this stuff, it'll be there. And of course you've got that increased memory as well, so you have up to 244 gigabytes of storage space. So if you're like me and never remembering to delete files after, then you won't get that dreaded out of storage space in the middle of an imaging run.
Especially if it's a good clear night, and you're like, oh.
Well, at least not for some months anyway. Other than that, the little Plus is the same. So if you do planetary or EAA, you may want that additional storage. If you just don't want to keep swapping files around with micro SD cards or USB sticks, everything else stays the same. So,
and I know there's a new rotator on the table over there, right? Yeah. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Let's talk about the camera angle adjuster, because I don't know. This seems to be the most talked after thing, and I'm amazed actually. So if you're here at NEAF, you can come and have a look at the camera angle adjuster. It's on the table over here. It will be coming out later this year. I've been testing it in New Zealand for a few months. Really nice. I really love it. It's a metal body, M54 end or an M48 adapter on it, so it'll connect in. It's about 16.5 millimeters thick, so it replaces basically a spacer. Okay. So you don't have to worry about, trying to fit this in your imaging chain. It's already basically the same size as one of our spacers. USB connector on it, and also has a port for our hand controller. So the hand controller from the focuser will fit straight into the hand box on the on CAA if you want to use this.
So you could use, the same hand controller for both items, both the autofocuser and the rotator.
Yeah, absolutely. Which was a surprise when it appeared on my box on my doorstep. I was like, oh, okay, what's this for? There is still a few rough edges to sort out. We're aware of the pressure of this. We understand the interest. I would suspect in the latter half of this year you'll be able to order one of these online. So it's coming. Most definitely.
It has definitely been like the most talked about thing I've seen on the forums and the social media networks and so forth. It's like, where's the rotator?
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And that was, we're arriving on the stand here, like, where's that angle adjuster? I want to see it. Yeah.
So I have just a couple more questions for you, Simon. Now, if there was one place you could go on planet Earth to either do astronomy or astrophotography, where do you think that would be?
I think there is only one place that most of us would want to go, and that would be to Chile, to the Atacama. So, 300 clear nights a year. Although I was talking to the guys from Obstec, they had 3 feet of snow this year. They haven't had snow for years, and they had 3 feet of snow this year. That would be typical for me, that would be the curse of, the southern astronomer. But Atacama. If I lottery, that's where I'm building, for sure.
If it was Northern Hemisphere, I would say Hawaii, for me. Hawaii Island, because it is a Portal 1, and I've climbed that mountain. It's pretty incredible. Like, there's down below, it's overcast all the time, but the clouds just go around the island, and I went there one night and they were like, it's a little bit hazy tonight, and I'm looking out, I was like, this is a fantastic night. You guys consider this a bad night? But they are spoiled for sure. And Atacama, that would probably be that'd be my choice for the Southern Hemisphere for sure.
Yeah, for me, being a Southern Hemisphere guy, I love what we have down there in the sky. Atacama would be number one. I have been to Hawaii, and it is impressive up there. So I could see myself, on a longer kind of holiday into Hawaii again, go up there and image, most definitely.
One last question before I let you go. Have you researched anything this week that's like science-based? So one of the things that we've been looking at this week is actually, obviously, recently with the DART mission and the impactor on there with the asteroid, and that citizen science collection. I've really been interested how Seastars can actually help this. So I'm really keen, I'll be taking one of these back to New Zealand to do some testing in the Southern Hemisphere. One of the things that I'm really interested in, because of this, support outreach and school kids in learning and education, I'm really keen to be helping out on this, so I'm definitely driving the team towards that sort of citizen science data collection. So I've been reading up a lot about how that's been working. So there we go. Hey, Simon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Pleasure to talk to you, and I hope you have a great show.
Oh yes.
Been down here, come and have a look.
All right, folks.